Hello, all you Contras and preppers out there. I have a special guest again tonight, another common man who's not so common. We're going to talk to LaserHam, and we're going to be talking about two things, but it's going to be an AAR of Historians class that we did semi-recently. And I also want to talk about his company as well, because some of you guys might be super interested in this, especially the ones who are like me and like a good product, don't want to spend way too much, but want something nice in their kit that they don't have to put together. And we'll get into that in a little bit, because we're going to talk a little bit about building antennas and his experiences and everything else. So why don't you introduce yourself and spill off your website and whatever else you want to tell everybody.
Hello, everyone. I go by the LaserHam on the interwebs. I have a company called the LaserHam, and you can find that at thelaserham.com or on Etsy at the LaserHam or eBay at the LaserHam. I make portable antennas right now for VHF and UHF. They're folding ground plane antennas, also called jungle antennas. We can talk about the history of those here in a little bit. Yep, G and I went to the beginning of the month. This is the end of June right now, and we've been talking online for a while, but this is the first time we met, and we had a blast at the class. Historian just has so much information. He is like an endless well of information when it comes to radio. I'm so happy I went to that class.
Yeah, he's a super smart guy. I every time I talk about him or talk to him, I'm like, you've forgotten more than I probably will ever know on the subject. I bought a 800-page book recently that he recommended, or 1,000. It's one of those ARRL massive DX low band monstrosities that I'll probably never understand. But he's also gotten me some books that were very in the same vein of like easy to read stuff that I enjoy being a common retard. But I do want to talk to you, antenna, because we talked online and I saw you post here and there, and you've been on X. To be fair, Facebook has turned into a degenerate mess of very bad ads and influencers, and I don't get on X as much because I'm just trying to like stay away from online stuff. But when I get on there, some of the most unique people pop up. LaserHam was one of them. Zero and Sons that we talked to recently, and I need to do another podcast with him with better audio. Just very good innovators. And I want to talk about your product because I was like, bring one to class. I know you're coming to the class, bring one. Not because this is a new antenna that's never been designed before, but I really like your design features. I really like your pack away feature. And I also like the fact that there's basically nothing in your jungle antenna design that's going to cause any interference that's metal pieces or something like that. So you don't have any of that parasitical issue some other antennas may get. I've seen some other companies and other people making those antennas, but you have a unique way to do it. It is 3D printed, but it's some of the most fun 3D printed material. And I will add to this that I have a soft spot for 3D printing, especially because Vigilante Engineering makes awesome cases for the
Doesn't he, though?
6100.
He makes amazing products.
Yeah, he sent me something that I really wanted to review, but I couldn't fit onto my night vision. But they have iterated out of it, and I'm working on the antenna setup that he sent me. And you saw it in class, I think, the throw up antenna. But you're doing a totally different antenna, which I appreciate because you guys aren't stepping on each other's toes. And I think you're going to be with your discount this weekend. And I don't know if this is going to get up fast enough. You might be worked in
yes,
all 160 people that listen to this thing.
Yeah, this week, because it's the week before the Independence Day celebration of the country's 250th anniversary. That's so exciting. And because I have a little touch of the TISM, I needed to have a sale that matched that. So I'm doing 25% off my antennas.
Yeah, which is insane. I told you not to.
I know.
I'll appreciate that you did that.
Yeah, I know. I'm not going to be making much money on that, but that's okay. Because like I said, my TISM is
your TISM is
happy
TISM.
now. My TISM is happy now.
So explain kind of why you designed this antenna, and you have a couple different ones. Explain the different versions, because there's one that doesn't have the extra accoutrement to it.
Yeah.
But you have some really bomb-proof pieces of equipment.
Oh, Thank you. Yes. So the history of this, jungle antennas have been around for a while. Jungle antenna is also called the ground plane antenna. It sounds kind of fancy and yada, 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 but a ground plane just means that it's a vertical antenna with something metal underneath to act as the other half of the antenna. For example, if you ever put the antenna that's on your car, that's mounted on your car, if you put one on the roof, you mag mount on it, or you have it sticking out near your hood for radio reception, that's a ground plane antenna, where the radiating element is the part that's sticking up in the air, and the ground plane is either the roof of your car or the hood of your car. This just uses radials, 3 pieces of wire, as the ground plane instead of having a sheet of metal. And I first came across the idea of the ground plane. Well, one of the first antennas you ever make when you're in a ham, or when you're reading up on ham, getting your amateur license, is a ground plane. It's in all the books, and they usually make it out of the SO239 connector, the big connector,
Yeah.
where they take apart like a clothes hanger, and they do some ugly soldering, and you end up with this thing that kind of looks like a pyramid
Yep.
with the antenna sticking off the top. And that's everyone's first antenna. Yay. Where I saw that in the book. But then when Brushbeater put out his first book, the Baofeng, I picked that up, and I read that, and he mentioned that in there too. And I'm like, that's an interesting idea. I was toying around with antenna making at the time, and my first antenna was actually not one of these. My first antenna was a roll-up Yagi for
Right.
70 centimeters in GMRS. I think,
That's not a bad choice either. And
yeah,
I want to see your prototypes because I know you don't sell that right now, but
yeah,
I'd like to see your old stuff on that.
yeah. I sold that a while ago, and this was before I had a 3D printer, and I didn't know anything about manufacturing or anything. So what I did is I made it out of Velcro, hook and loop, and it worked
Yep.
great, but it was ugly as sin. And I was kind of, it worked so well, but I was ashamed selling it because it looked like it was made in someone's garage. And that's because it was.
Yeah.
But it worked well, and there's nothing on the market like it. There still isn't anything on the market like it. And after I picked up Brushbeater's book and I looked at the ground plan, some gears started going in my head, and I thought I could make something similar for just a regular vertical antenna, a regular jungle antenna.
Mm.
And I came up with a little design. I sketched it out, and this was when I was going to different prepper festivals trying to sell my Yagi, my roll-up Yagi. And I
Yeah.
was there at one festival with Joe Dolio. We saw each other. And I showed him the first design of the jungle antenna, and he thought it was pretty cool. So I worked on it. And then I went to Brushbeater's RTO course. And that really kind of like blew my mind, because I originally got into ham radio for emergency communications. Just
Yeah, and a lot
because,
of
yeah,
people are now. So many people are into it now because of that.
exactly. I live out in the country, and I'm thinking, the sheriff is 20 minutes away if I'm
Yep.
lucky.
Yep.
So I might want to be able to do something, have other options in case my cell phone doesn't work, which sometimes it doesn't, because like I said, I'm out in the country.
You're in my favorite area of the world.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
Yeah. I live in Leave Me Alone, Tennessee.
Yes. Perfect. I'll be
The
moving out there sometime soon.
Well, you're welcome up here, brother. So I came up with this idea, and I went to it. I went to the class. It blew my mind, the amount of information. I highly recommend Brushbeater's RTO course too. The whole
Yeah.
series of RTO, advanced RTO, and the signals course. Highly, highly recommended.
Yep.
And after that course, my brain was just in overdrive at that point, and I came
Yep.
up with my original version, Cobra Head as the central unit. It was almost identical to what we built in class. What we built
Yeah.
in class was a Cobra Head, which is a 2-post BNC adapter, if you want to know the other name for it, or a banana plug adapter. There's all kinds of names
Cobra
for it.
head,
Yeah, but
blah, blah,
Cobra Head,
blah,
yeah, yeah,
whatever
yeah.
name you want.
Whatever name you want. So in class, we built it out of a Cobra Head and pieces of electric fence wire, just aluminum electric fence wire. You could buy at, Rural King or Tractor Supply or wherever. and that worked well. That worked really well. I was surprised how well that worked, even though it looked it just looked ugly, but it worked
You know, the
amazingly well.
SWR wasn't totally perfect either,
I
but
it doesn't matter though.
no,
It
no.
doesn't matter. It's good enough. It's better than the antenna that you have attached to your radio.
Yeah. And I want to back up just a little bit and
Mhm.
say this just because of like I'm pretty good friends with Scout. Love the guy to death. I think he's awesome. Joe Dolio. I don't know if he likes me as much as I like him, but I think he's an awesome dude too.
Joe's
Um,
an amazing man.
yeah, and I don't think he gets enough credit just because he's not doing the sales thing and everything else, but he's working so hard out in Montana.
He
And
is.
I always bring up his classes because I know there's going to be some listeners eventually that are out in that field out that way
Yeah.
that can go to him. But regardless, I as
Yeah.
a ham radio operator always bought cheap antennas. So I knew it didn't really matter that much, but I never built one until I got to the RTO course. And after that point, I don't, there is a handful of antennas that I'll buy. I will buy specific antennas for gigahertz stuff because a PC board antenna is easier to do than try to get just the right distance on a plug.
Right.
And you are one of the exceptions to that rule. Yes, I can build that antenna. Anyone could build your antenna. There's a reason why I want your antenna. And I meant to buy one when I got home. I was like, I should have bought it off of you. I'm glad my friend bought one and he's out acting a fool online and partying hardy with both his built antenna and his purchased antennas, which I think is just phenomenal. But when he talks about it more, he'll probably explain my likes if I don't add to it later. But the reality is a purpose built antenna built with quality is going to trump something that you put together yourself unless you put a lot of time and patience in it. And that's fine, but for the new guys who are in the RTO course, and honestly, I want your Yagi antenna because I have the Arrow antenna,
Yep.
and I hate that thing. I love it because it's really nice quality, but putting the rods together, the
Right.
time it takes to deploy, and when you're doing signals intelligence stuff like that on the fly, that's a pain in the ass.
Yes.
Antenna, great, well built antenna, very clear, works functionally well, but is just a pain. It's extra weight that isn't needed. So continue on with your thing, and we'll probably hit on why I like yours so much, why I bought one.
All right. Cool. Cool. So yes, after the ITR course, like I said, I took the whole series of courses. My mind was blown. The gears were turning. And my first version of the antenna was made with a Cobra head. But what I did was I bought, instead of using regular wire, I didn't go down to Home Depot and just buy house wire and or speaker wire and use that. I did some research and went with a bespoke antenna wire. It's made by an American company and it is meant to be flexed. It is meant to be bent and it doesn't kink. So I found that wire, tested with it, and it worked well. It didn't kink. You could almost tie it in knots, and it would untie and still work. So I said, okay, that's going to be the base of my antenna. I needed something well, let me just describe what it looks like. It's like the antenna we described earlier, where there's a piece going up, that's the radiating element, then three wires hanging down kind of like in a pyramid shape that are the ground plane or the other half of the antenna. So if you imagine on your handheld radio, you have the part that goes up, that's the antenna that everyone calls the antenna. But in reality, that's only half the antenna. The other half of the antenna is actually the body of the radio because the antenna needs both the plus and minus sides. And the way it works is the plus and minus alternate sides rapidly, and that generates the magnetic and electrical waves that could propagate out and allow you to be heard by other radios that are picking up those signals. So this antenna is a complete antenna. It has both the plus and minus sides, and it folds up. The top radiating element folds down, and the legs, the three radials have this little sliding strut that goes up and down. One of them is attached to the next to its neighbor, so it allows you to kind of fold up the antenna so it is instead of being in place, allows you to fold it down and stick it in your
I think
backpack.
I think I can give you a better explanation
Yeah.
because I think you made a great explanation earlier. You said it's a pyramid with an antenna or sticking out of the top. So
Hmm.
if you have a three-sided pyramid, those struts that come down are both flexible and your antenna cable is phenomenally good. Like I may buy some of that and rebuild my antenna that I've got already that I'm working on from Vigilante Engineering. But the base layers, like if you set it on the ground, those base legs that keep the antenna strutted out to work correctly are flexible as well.
Yes. Yeah, so if you've ever made a ground plan antenna or a jungle antenna, you buy your pieces of wire, you hook it up to the Cobra head, and then you usually tie sticks to the end of of the ground plane to hold the legs apart at kind of like a close to correct angle. Well, I have instead of well, originally when I was still using the Cobra head version, I had fiberglass legs. I was just using solid fiberglass legs. It worked again, but it was ugly as sin, and it I just didn't like it.
Fiberglass is fiberglass, and
Fiberglass is fiberglass, and you're using a Cobra head as your hub, so you have all the pains dealing with the Cobra head, with the
Mhm.
things loosening and whatnot.
Yep.
So that was the first version. The second version, I got a 3D printer. This was a while ago now. Well, I had a 3D printer, but I wasn't using it for the antenna. So I said, I'm going to try printing my own little enclosure for where the Cobra head is. So I printed a little enclosure. I bought the connector, kind of put it in there, and that worked a lot better. Now everything was enclosed. It could never loosen. It could never fall apart. That was the first version. Then
Yep.
the current version I have now, no, I still use the fiberglass, but the current version I have now is completely enclosed. I have the struts now are flexible. I'm using a flexible engineering material that's not TPU for you 3D printing guys. So I'm not using TPU. I'm using something else because TPU gets to its melting point is too low. I didn't like it. Excuse me.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah.
roughhouse a little bit down here while I'm in Florida for as long as God forces me to stay in this hellhole of a fire pit. But
Right.
I think it's gonna hold up just fine considering it held up just fine in class, and it was not cool when we were in
No.
class.
No, I the whole design philosophy for my antennas is that the antenna is only one piece. There's
Yep.
nothing to put together.
Yep.
There's nothing to lose. You either have
Yep.
the antenna or you don't. There's nothing to screw in. There's no wing nuts to lose in the grass. There's not. It's one piece. That I think that's my biggest innovation because jungle antenna, the design's been around for 100 years.
Yep. I think it's one of the reasons why I was so impressed with some of the photos you posted on that, and that's why I wanted to see it in the first place. And that's why I bought it. Can I build jungle antenna? Absolutely. Will I build more jungle antennas for other frequencies? Probably at some point. But your 2 meter covers well and does all the other stuff. You have a couple different variations too, but it's all in one. You don't have to piss around with it. You don't have to go find the sticks. And we all know that sticks are still conductive. If you know anything about building antennas, you'll understand a saturated stick is still going to conduct a bit. Now, we're talking about little issues. It's kind of like the other company that makes it, and I have no idea who it is. I've just seen, probably because I've seen your stuff. The algorithm pushed his stuff, and his looks like a Ted pulse with a little aluminum fixture in between the legs, which is fine. They'll come apart and it's his stays together. I don't want the clicky clacky. I really don't.
Right.
Yours is going to fit down in a bag. It's going to wrap around my radio. It's going to wrap around an HF radio because some of my HF radios run 2 meters, 70 centimeters. And I'd rather run two different antennas up in a tree in two different locations. It'd be
Yeah.
so much easier.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said, my design philosophy is for simple, nothing to lose. It's quick to deploy. You hang it. It's not freestanding, so you have to hang it, but it takes seconds. And I'm not exaggerating here. It takes seconds to deploy. It's, throw your rope up in the tree, haul this in, unfold the antenna, hook up the antenna feed line, haul this thing up into a tree, transmit, bring it back down, fold it back up, and you're
Shove
gone.
it in your bag and
And,
haul
and
ass
haul
because you
ass.
don't. Yeah, it's
Uh,
great.
it is that fast. There's nothing to set up. There's nothing to screw in. There's just up in a tree, transmit, and go.
Yep.
If you're operating like that.
Oh, and you may have to, and that's something that I know historian brings up quite a bit. And your time in a position, I've talked about this, Scout has talked about this, historians talked about this on this podcast. Time of transmission can get you a caliber missile in your face, and the breakdown time is the most critical part, because even if you have a short transmission and they can track and triangulate where you are, they could send a particular round your way that is big enough to cover a large area or
Yes.
even blanket an area, and you need to be moving fast after that transmission. Many people forget about that because we live in the, I'm going to call it the FUD hemisphere. No, no problem with them. I don't really want to hear about the goiters, and I understand historian falls in that a little bit too, but he's smart enough to know better. He knows how this all works out in a real world conflict, and obviously Scout does. He's been out in the real world conflict running communications and hunting people who've done that. Once you are done, you get the hell out.
Yes.
And that's why your product's so nice.
Heaven forbid we ever have to operate in such a way. But yes, my antenna, you get her out of the tree, you're gone.
Mm.
There's nothing. Yeah, I mean, you don't even have to fold it up. Just like bunch it up, throw it in your bag, and you're gone.
Yeah, I doubt anybody who's listening in the Ukraine Russo war stuff is listening, but like this is something I would take over there for the 2 meter, 70 centimeter area, just because if you need to communicate that direction, that's something I can throw up real fast and get the hell out of the tree and get going, because they will send drones after that location spot on.
Yes, yes. The critical time isn't the setup time
Nope.
because you're radio quiet at that point. It's the hit transmit. You type it up in your Android pad ahead of time, hit the transmit button. It takes its 15, 30 seconds to transmit, and then you yank down everything and you haul ass.
Yep. And that's something our military doesn't understand either. I know they're looking at it. I've talked to a couple of my buddies who are in the comms world, especially the Marine Corps, is actually looking at HF and other things. They're paying attention to it, and I think it's getting some clout now, but I don't think any of them are thinking about it. They're just like, I'm just going to wear my pack antenna and pray to God it gets out, which is fine. But what happens when you need to reach further? What happens when you need to do a little bit more? What happens when there's just enough terrain deviation? You need to put something up in a tree tall enough and do it. It's yeah. So that's I like to promote people who are doing stuff of innovation, doing stuff that may be old school tech a new way, and you're bringing to the market something that is not unique, but you're doing it in a unique manner that is more functional for war fighters in other countries. I pray to God we don't have anything over here that way, but I understand most of the guys who listen to this are concerned about that too. So if you're worried about that over here, there you go. Or if you just want to throw up a radio real quick and do a SOTA POTA activation and get away before a rainstorm, which I have tried to do, it's still not a bad option either. And I love it's just wherever I've got packs, I could just throw it in and it'd be totally
Yeah.
fine.
And because everything's flexible, you can even it up again. So it's only the smallest I've gotten it is into a bundle that's been roughly about 6 inches by 6 inches by 2 inches deep. And if you want to like jam it into a really tiny,
You could shove it in a cargo pocket and run away.
yes, yeah,
That's it's not that huge. Probably even the M81 blouse pockets, I could probably shove it in pretty easily and start moving. So
and back to the materials I use. I use real, like I said, antenna wire. It's made to be antenna wire. It's all copper. The hub is printed out of a high temperature plastic, so it's not going to melt if you leave it on your dashboard. It's weatherproof. I completely fill it with polymers, or I pot it. It's called potting, where it's weatherproof at that point because nothing can get in because there's no air gaps or anything like that. The struts I use are again printed from engineering plastic. It's high temperature, so it won't melt. It has an isolation ring at the top, so you can hang it from a tree and it isolates the antenna from. No, it's kind of like the dog bone insulators there. So
and it keeps you from, like, if you got rope that's wet, it's
right,
not gonna
yeah,
change your SWR.
right, and then the band's labeled on it. Everything I use as much American products as I can. The antenna wire is American. The connector is from Amphenol, which is an American company. It it'll be good forever. The plastic I use is I try to get as much from American companies as possible, depending
Yeah.
on the color. It's either made in America or hopefully I'll find someone that makes it in America. And I just try to use American product as much as possible. And everything is top of the line because that's my TISM talking again. I don't want to. I
Well,
know I can make it better.
you're building good quality stuff,
Right.
and
And this
your
is like
army
the
green is sold out right now, so I'm assuming
uh
you're
oh
trying to source that,
uh
or maybe okay. It says sold out on Etsy, but you have an urban gray, which honestly I'd change the name to tree bark gray because that's what it is. And then you have flat dark earth, and you have blaze orange for the
for the hams.
less, yeah, for the
Yeah,
less concerned guys who don't want to lose their stuff and are
right,
just having fun.
right. I go to Hamfest as well,
Yeah,
and the orange is popular with the hams because they might not.
it's the
You
fun
know,
lore. It's
well,
the fun lore coming back.
right. You know, if they drop their antenna, they want to be able to find it on the ground. And
Which is good, and then most of them have bad eyesight and goiter issues too, so I kind of get it.
yes, yeah, I offer the antenna in a multi-band version, which is 2 meters, MERS, 70 centimeters, and it's
Yep.
okay on GMRS.
Mhm.
That's a 2 meter version. I have a 1.25 meter version for the 222 megahertz folks.
Oh,
All
yeah.
three of you in the world that still use that.
Yeah.
I laugh. You know, we all laugh about that. But I was
It's rarely used, it's pretty good.
yeah, I was at Hamcation down in
Mhm.
Orlando in January. I had a booth down there. I was talking to people, and they had 222 megahertz radios that they could talk amongst themselves, you know, a group of friends. And they
Yep.
did it because no one else was on it.
Oh, yeah, yeah, and there's a lot of little niche bands that people don't really work as much as we probably should, so
Yeah,
uh
so guys out there, the 222 megahertz band, might want to check it out. A lot of people don't use it. And I also have a 70 centimeter GMRS antenna, and that's the one you were talking about that doesn't have the struts because it's so
Yep,
small, it doesn't need them.
yep, yep.
And a lot of the GMRS folks buy those because all you have to do is look at the reviews up on Etsy.
Oh, yeah. You have five-star reviews on everything,
Yeah,
and I think I saw one of my friends on there too. But the reality of all this too is like the 222, nobody uses it, and that's something for prepper side you may want. Yes, 2 meters, MERS, 70 centimeters, everybody uses it, and it's a great training bands too. But if you have the opportunity to go to 1.25 meters, why not use that instead of using what everybody else does? Just saying. We forget about this, and this is a great step off towards the class because all the training that we do with all these radio stuff, we do legally, and we don't do anything sketchy. We don't do anything that violates
of course
FCC
not.
stuff. But we do talk about what if, and we also talk about how to deal with the stuff because the knowledge isn't just for Joe on the street. In a perfect world, there's no crime, there's no nothing else. They could be going to Venezuela doing doing work and having to switch bands because the band they're working is totally filled, but they're legally allowed to do it. They could be honestly Cubans for all we know trying to fight the regime down there. Because the internet is so widespread, because people to come to these classes, and I know there's been some government types that have come to the HF class before all the wars popped off. That stuff translates to other systems, to other programs, to, hey, here's a radio to a guerrilla fighter in a foreign country trying to fight for liberty and freedom. And this is how you do things. So, with that context in mind and the different bands and everything else, let's talk a little bit about the HF class, maybe what you thought where you were going to get when you came in and your experiences. And we'll go from there.
Yes, what I wanted to get out of it was more experience with NVIS. I mean, I've done some stuff at home. My current home antenna, my main antenna, is set up in an NVIS antenna basically because I can't get the antenna high enough right now where I am. So it means I can usually get from Tennessee to Texas, so that kind of radius around it very easily, but not much further. Although I'm amazed at what I can hear sometimes. I think the furthest I've heard was from Italy. So NVIS antennas are still effective for listening. I just want more experience with NVIS and learn all about the subtle things of NVIS that they don't have in the radio handbooks that you get when you are getting ready to take the test.
Yeah.
About how to interact with different, things, and how to interact with different, what do you call it? The different layout of the
Terrain
land. Yeah, terrain
features. Yeah.
features, and how high to put it to kind of tune it, and what time of day to use it, and how to use that time of day to your advantage in some cases. So all the subtle stuff that I didn't know, that's not in the normal books. And even if it is, it's not discussed in a way that you would connect the dots. Like, all the
No.
information is probably out there in the books, but no one's connecting the dots. You kind of have to absorb it all and then kind of figure it out yourself. This class lets you just shortcut all that and go, okay, this
Yep.
is the most effective way to do it. This is how to, where to put the antenna, how to deploy it, what kind of antenna to use. That was the other thing I wanted to see, is what kind of antenna should I be making? What kind of antenna using? And that clarified a lot of things for me. Historian, again, bottomless well of information when it comes to ham radio and radio communications in
Mm.
general. And the funniest thing in the class, the best thing in the class, was the ginormous, oversized comedy soldering iron that he was using.
Yeah, which, to be fair, every time I use that, I'm like, I kind of want one. I'll probably use it almost never, but man, do they work, and they are effective.
They're not exactly for fine work,
No, you are
but
not doing any fine work. But if
but
you're building an antenna,
if you need to build antennas, yes, that is a monster, soldering iron in more ways than one.
I was impressed with. Oh man, there's so much to go on this stuff, and there's so many places you can go down with this conversation. Let's I guess start from the beginning. Here's the thing that I love about Historian. Historian oversaturates you with so much information, but he explains it in such a simple terms for most people that it's he could teach somebody that didn't know a thing about radios the basics and the principles enough to get the job done, and he'll take somebody who knows a little bit more and give them the understanding on how to expand on it. And that's part of the feature I don't see in the books. Specifically, you're talking about, oh, there's all these books with all this information. Yeah, there are. I've read some of them. Historians said, go look at this. And I'll tell you right now, I've seen more better information from a book. It's FM 24-18 Field Radio Techniques from July 1965, because they weren't writing for a bullet on their statement for getting a promotion, and it is in plain text. It is very finite. Don't go get that book for that specific reason. There's not much in there, but they do talk about close-in conversations. They don't use the word specifically NVIS, but it's there. After that, the military dropped it. I feel like, and even historians said in class, people don't use NVIS anymore because we have cell phones, because we have this, we have other stuff, and it's now the goal to get long range contacts for the hobby and not so much the prepper community. And I bless so many souls on this. The prepper community has picked up on some really good ideas and some shit ones.
Yes.
Meshtastic being one of them.
Well, yes
And
and no. Let me talk about Meshtastic for a second.
okay,
In a non-permissive environment, Meshtastic is suicide. Scout explains this to a great extent. You're just inviting a knock on the door if you have, or a bullet through the
or a
door.
round on the head,
Yeah.
rounds on foreheads.
But in fun times, in happy times,
Oh, it's great. Yeah, it's fun.
Meshtastic is, well, it's an interesting idea. The other one, I forget the name, with the other mesh that they're,
Oh, mesh core or
something
something
like
like
that.
that.
That is more effective, I think, for the kind of stuff we talk about.
Yeah.
It actually allows you to transfer files and do that sort of thing. But Meshtastic, the whole idea is kind of neat. They're leveraging the idea of using high reliability, low bandwidth connections
Yep.
to pass data. And
Yeah.
Meshtastic lets you to pass text messages about.
If you can get to them. I've had a
Yeah.
problem in the cities getting transmissions out and receiving and everything
Right.
else. And There's nothing knocking. I love that the science and innovations there. I am very concerned with the I'm a new guy to prepping, and here's this device that
Yes.
they're selling for $50, and they swear up and down it chews bubble gum, it runs ATAC, and ATAC's amazing, and you are now a super Navy SEAL Marine combat paratrooper individual, and that's how it gets sold, and that's my big concern about it. But I do agree with you. I think I think most people who have played with it have seen the potential. I know the military is deep into it, but it's also one of those things in a permissive environment, it's great. I kind of feel like it's one of those things that a lot of preppers, unless you are a radio guy like myself, LaserHam, historian, you are, and to be fair, mine have sat for long enough. I don't know if I'm out of gap long enough that my software doesn't talk to the new software. So if you take them, buy them, and be like, "Oh, these are great," and then don't update them,
Right.
they're done for later because they won't talk. It'd be like trying to run DOS on talking to Windows 11 from a DOS computer without a lot of extra software and a lot of updates.
Right. Right. That's the thing. It's a software technology. So when the standard changes slightly, suddenly you're not
Yeah,
able
you
to
might be
talk.
fine for 6 months, a year, or something like that. But if you're not a radio nerd, if you're not working these networks, it's a bad idea. That's why I'm so focused on the handhelds, on the HF, because that stuff, no matter what radio you pick up, you can generally get communications functioning to some extent if you know the basics. Meshtastic kind of breaches that and goes, "Oh, well, you don't need the basics. You just turn it on and connect your phone."
And that's the thing. There are a lot of people that are getting into preparedness now,
Yep.
especially since the hurricanes in North Carolina, because that really woke people up, where the cell phone towers didn't work, power was
Florida's
out.
Florida's big into it right now. The
Yes.
Meshtastic networks are big, and I hope they stay up. I
Right.
think there's too many preppers who are not going to do their due diligence.
Well, that's what happens. We all go through that stage when we're first getting into preparedness, where you just want the thing that works. You're looking up the best radio on Google or these days on ChatGPT. You go, what is the best radio? And you're getting some horrible answer from ChatGPT or Google because you don't know how to ask the right question because you're not there yet. So everyone gets the thing. They get the cheap, all the cheap gear because that's what the YouTubers are talking about.
Or the gear they're selling, because
Yeah.
honestly, some of those companies, like I bought mine offline off of, I don't know, AliExpress or something like that, got the things and put them together myself, and it was probably 20, 25 bucks per device. And I see some of these companies selling 50, $60. It's a lot
Right.
of money going into them.
Right.
Anyways, now that we've rattled on about Meshtastic, let's
Yeah.
go back to historian's
Go
class.
back to historian Scott. So he, cuts through all that BS that you would normally have to go through a new radio operator. You might have your general license, so you have access to HF bands, and you have your base station, you have your antenna that you bought, that you didn't make, you bought yourself, you bought, and everything seems to be working. But we'll take that. The next step after that is getting ready for field day, which we're, I think, currently in, and taking it outside and doing portable ops, and then that's great. The next step after that is what happens if they don't want you to talk,
Yep, and that's the big thing of this class.
and that's one of the big things in this class. Well, and it's not just that. I mean, he definitely covered a lot about that. He talked about all the spurious emissions you get, even if you think you're doing everything right. All the spurious emissions you're still getting,
Yep.
and how to get rid of them. That was another thing that blew me away about his class. Those things I wasn't even thinking about. I was thinking about antenna placement and kinds of antennas. I wasn't thinking about all the other electrical things that are going on when you're transmitting. So you have your setup, and now you want to use it when things aren't as accommodating. I mean, if you're going out in field day, you usually have other people with you, and you have all the stuff ready to go, and you have as much time as you want to set up the antenna, and you don't have to worry about tearing down the antenna until Sunday night and blah, blah, blah. But what happens if there's an emergency? It doesn't have to be the Russians or the Chinese invading. It could just be another natural disaster like what happened in North Carolina or some of the flash flooding that happened this week in Kentucky.
Yeah.
Just horrible things where suddenly you don't have power, the cell phone
gotta get out of the
Tower.
house. It's actually flooding. You
Yeah,
have your
yeah,
radio in a pack because you are ready to
yeah.
do. You've got your go bag, but who am I going to communicate with?
And
How
how
far
am
can
I
I
going to get?
communicate with?
I might live out in the middle of nowhere, and I can't get anyone on VHF. I can't get
Oh,
anyone on my Baofeng, even with an external antenna like the one I make. You might need to talk more than 10, 15 miles. You might need to talk 20, 100, 300 miles. This is where that historians class really shines, is
yeah.
it lets you, even if you have to build your own antenna, it gives you what you need and how to make it and all the measurements you need and how to figure it out. And you can communicate when it really matters. Your message will get through. And we even had in the class the practical examples, which were invaluable, where we went out at different times of day to try things out. I wasn't too happy about getting up at 4 in the morning to try
Let's
some
do.
things. Yeah, yeah, yeah. A lot of people did.
Yeah.
I think we called
I
ourselves.
didn't the
Yeah.
last time. I got up for the previous one. This one I was like I was smoked. I was ready for sleep.
But we did that, and he let us experience what it's like to talk at different times of day under different conditions. And then the final practical exercise where we drove like an hour away, or one group drove an hour away, and then tried to communicate to the other group. Set up antennas in the field with no, you had to do everything battery powered manually. And we managed to communicate, and that was it was great. So this class is invaluable because of not only the theory, but the practical applications. You can see what it's like, you can feel what it's like, you can hear what it's like to operate under all these different conditions.
And the best part about it is he tells you why. So not only
Yes.
does he because there's a I'm gonna call it book knowledge versus actual like experiential knowledge, as the left likes to say, my lived experience. There is book knowledge that will help you get to where you're going, but until you actually feel, see, touch, taste some of this concepts, you won't understand what's in the book. And vice versa. I've run crystal radios forever, and some stupid nerdy and Japanese anime. I'd watch videos on how they make crystal oscillation radios, but some some nerd in Japan drew a anime to teach kids about technology, and how they explained it just made my brain click. And I had had the physical experience, but I didn't understand the principles. And then all of a sudden, oh, now I understand why how a crystal radio, the crystal actually does what it does, which is stupid because I've watched World War II videos on the subject and everything else too. I think Historian brings everything, molds everything together, and allows you to see and experience this. And this is something I've gone through because my stupid butt went out with Rabbit, and we'd go camping, and I'd throw up antennas and try stuff and do stuff. So I was learning through stupidity. I was learning through experiential stupidity. And I did the same thing with the RTO, advanced RTO class with Scout. A lot of the stuff I already experienced. I knew what he was talking about, but the glue that came together in these classes is phenomenal. And that's part of the reason why I want you on, not just my dumb butt talking, but somebody else who went to the class and saw that same thing I did.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, the experience was invaluable. We all, when we're new operators, go out there and fumble around and make all the stupid mistakes. And going to a class like historian's class, going to a class like RTO lets you shortcut and not make those mistakes. Lets you,
Years of
yeah,
stupidity.
lets you
Years.
get to where you want to be a lot more quickly because someone that has made all those mistakes already allows you to bypass making them yourself so you can get to the meat and potatoes of what you need to do to communicate and not spend time buying antennas that are inefficient or buying the
Overly
latest,
expensive.
overly expensive or the latest gimmick or anything like that. They
Mhm.
just go straight to what works. Here's why it works. Here's how it works. Here, try it. Use it yourself so you can feel how it works. And that way you can get the job done when it counts.
I I think that's a great experience, and this is another spot where you are going to an HF class. You are told why you should build the specific antenna has up. I'll say what it is. It's a link dipole. And he in the first class explained, and we still I think he brought out his fan dipole for this class as well, and there are other antennas that work in the features and in the ways that he recommends running your setup, but we stick with the link dipole because it's easier to operate. It's faster to deploy than a lot of the other ones that turn into a jumbled mess, and it's got its drawbacks, but it's got a lot of abilities too. However, he does explain the rest of them. So if you have a base of operations, we'll just say you're in Ukraine, you're behind enemy lines, and you're setting up an HF network that they can't hit, which is not true, but we'll just pretend they can't hit that spot. You can set up different antennas that are less mobile, but Historian likes to have it so you have a bomb proof antenna when you leave, and it is field ready, and it's going to last you a long time. And that's another reason why I like the LaserHam stuff, because I mean your stuff is built the same concept.
Yeah, we
So
used coincidentally because I had never met Historian before the class. The antenna wire he uses and the antenna wire I use are from the same company. So we had independently found this company that makes amazing high quality antenna wire. So that was good to see. That was good to see that I had not that I hadn't missed it, that I had found something good. But yes, yeah, when you take this course, you build an antenna from scratch. He explains the theory, explains how it works,
he brings all the stuff. You
all
don't
the
bring
stuff.
anything.
You get to use the comedically large soldering iron
Yeah.
and put together this thing that you have a high quality antenna that's made with real high quality parts. You know, you wind your own toroid and everything.
Yep. And you know how to do it. So when you go out to do another one, you
Yep.
can. And the reality is, you can build a link dipole without a toroid in it. But the toroid helps in a lot of ways. He explains why you put one in.
Right.
So you can, in a pinch, go out there, grab the Cobra plug, which you learn in Scout's course, where you put up an antenna. And we in my Scout course built a antenna for HF because I have my HF radio with me. So we set it up and ran it off of 2 wires. I also have a tuner in between, so my radio is protected, which is kind of nice, as best as it can. But you can do that. That said, when you get done with his antenna, you're a hell of a lot safer. You've got less spurious transmissions. And Historian has said this on the podcast before. A lot of the mispositioning, missetups of antennas will get you killed faster than anything, because the technology out there to nail a transmission is so fast and so good that if you don't do it right, you can be in trouble.
Yeah,
So,
if the first weeks of the latest Ukraine war haven't taught you to not have anything that's transmitting
yeah, no
on
cell
your first, no
phones.
cell phones,
Ugh,
no nothing, because how many people lost their lives because they brought their cell phone to the front?
yeah, a whole bunch of Europeans and Americans that went over there had a whole training
Yeah,
facility leveled, and there's a few people that survived that have talked about their experience on YouTube, and it blows my mind. Even to this day, I was watching, I think, Chris Weatherman, who's a American. He's an author, and he does a lot of prepping community stuff. He's, great friends with Scout. He was talking about today, you walk around with a transmitter that is transmitting both your data and information all the time, your cell
right.
phone. And
And your position.
yeah, and it's easier for them to get that, so make it a little harder. Go to a radio. Well, they've already experienced that. The At least the big government actors, any government out there, I don't care how small your government is, could be Cuba, has DFing equipment that's pretty substantially good. Because I have DFing equipment in my house that I can turn on right now and find you real fast too. Maybe not as fast as the government stuff, but the common off the shelf technology is below $2,000.
Yes.
So it's expensive, but it's probably cheaper than some of the people that have built really nice AR-15s that they don't shoot enough. So
Yes. And I know we've been talking a lot about
yeah, yeah,
but again, this is also incredibly effective for emergency communications. I mean, look at what happened in North Carolina. Again, the hurricane North Carolina, the only thing that was getting out was ham radio until the Starlinks could come in.
Yep.
until Elon could do his parachute drop of Starlinks.
And they weren't around
Yeah.
everywhere, and they couldn't get to every one of the places. I know Scout's brought up to multiple times. He's brought up that the somebody who went through his class actually had their tower blown down, and then had to build an antenna to get out. And they
Yep.
had the equipment and the stuff to do it. And that's what the whole point is. And if you're in any rugged terrain other than flat Earth nowhere, getting out of a disaster area, even a small one, tornadoes that cut power lines. When I was a child, there was a freeze out in I want to say the West or Midwest. It was Colorado, Nebraska. They froze in people for over a week, and it killed power lines. There was no power for a week, telephone lines because there were no cell phones at the time, and everybody was cut off.
Yep.
Nobody knew what was going on besides the ham radio people that had spent the time to set up their equipment and do the stuff.
Yes. Yeah. I was listening to Hurricane Net that night, and I was listening to the people calling out saying, "I lost power, cell phone, the cell tower's down.
Yeah,
This is the only way I can get out. Please let my family know I'm okay."
yeah, yeah.
And that's what you were hearing. And then somehow the Mount Mitchell repeater stayed up.
Survived. Yep, I listened to them.
So the people that were able to hit the repeater were able to talk. And then
Yep.
I also heard that people in the hollers there were using GMRS to great effect
Yeah.
to provide services and security.
Talking to one another and
Yeah.
sending messages out.
Yeah.
I actually was listening to that mountain repeater because it was still tethered to the internet somehow magically. And I listened to somebody get on there with, I guess, a Baofeng that he pulled out of the box. He had it, but like he'd set up and he just never used it because he didn't have a license. I heard one ham operator saying, "Oh, you can't talk because it's not an emergency." And then the person who was running the net was like, politely said, "Shut the hell up.
Right.
It
'Cause
is
it
an
is.
emergency. The guy's out there by himself. He doesn't have any power, and he wants to talk to somebody." And the comfort of the disaster. That's something I think a lot of the ham fuddery kind of bothers me on. Now, this is not to say go out, buy an HF radio, throw it in a box, leave it on a shelf, and ignore it. You do need some trigger time on HF versus like the laser hams antennas you could throw on a Baofeng. And if you read the Gorilla's Guide to the Baofeng radio, you could operate 10, 20, 15, or 10 to 30 plus miles, depending on how high you can get it up, maybe even further.
Yeah,
Uh,
the furthest confirmed contact I've had using one of my antennas is 142 miles
Oof.
from the top of this is a POTA operation from the top of a mountain in North Georgia down to Warner Robins, which was
Oh, wow.
142 miles. And the guy was using was Atlanta. What guy? He's on YouTube, Atlanta Ham or Atlanta
Okay.
POTA or something like that. And he was talking on ICOM 705. So that was
My
it was
favorite
10,
radio.
yeah, it was 10 watts.
Yep.
Well, however much that puts out on
10
VHF.
watts. It
Yeah.
maxes out 10 watts.
So that was
So,
10 watts, talking 142 miles from a mountaintop down to the plains of central Georgia.
yep.
So
Yep.
yeah, having a good antenna, it doesn't have to be mine, but having a good antenna makes all the difference. And that's something a historian, or both historian and scout cover. Having the proper antenna will
Having an
make
antenna is
it.
the
Yeah,
first rule.
having an antenna.
Historian
Yeah,
says that
yeah.
every time. He's like, first thing
First
is
thing, have
have
an
an
antenna.
antenna, have a radio.
Yeah,
Second thing, have an antenna.
yeah.
And so
And
the
then
nice thing is a lot of the radios now have built-in power supplies of some sort. I have become a big fan of the 6100 for its portability. I still think the G90 is one of the best entry-level radios, but you do have to bring your own battery to the party. But I'll even tell you, if you got a 6100, bring your own battery to the party because you may forget to charge your radios. And I went up for a soda and I didn't charge my battery, forgot my spare battery, or didn't charge the radio, forgot my spare battery, and happened to have a spare battery that went to the IC705 off of my handheld at the time that I took off and
wow.
plugged in just to get the transmissions out.
Well, that happened during
So,
class too.
yeah, oh
We
yeah,
went
I'm
out for
sure.
our field exercise. The radio that we were using, the battery had died overnight. It worked the day before and it died overnight. And luckily, we had a spare battery that someone could
Yep.
plug into that. Someone carried a battery with them, and we got up and running. So yes, have spare batteries, test your gear.
have a that stuff.
Yeah,
That's something that's going to turn into a book or not, because I'm trying not to step on what Scout's done and
right.
Historian is writing, which you've read his first chapter. I'm assuming I have not.
Yeah.
So I'm expecting good things.
Here,
Historian, if you're listening, I reminded you and emailed you, sir.
here's a radio that is just coming out that looks interesting. It's a Baofeng, but it is the UV36 Pro.
Eh?
It transmits on all the frequencies you expect from a Baofeng,
Hmm.
but it also receives on short, medium, and long wave.
Oh, interesting. I know the Radtel's been a big
Yeah.
thing about that too. I bought one. I was gonna buy one up at a Scout's place, and I didn't. And I'm glad I didn't because I had one in the house. I brought my other two radios. I'm like, man, I could have sworn I bought one. I tend to like beat out his store by weeks or months, not because like he isn't trying on the spot with it. It's just because I'm around this stuff so much, and I've gotten some radios that are absolute dog crap that were fun to play with. I think the UV5K, which you can do a lot of modding on. There's no space on it, so when you modify it or you play with it, you got limited things you can do.
Right.
You're cutting out something and replacing it with other. It's a great radio to play with as a hobby, but it's not something I would take out into the field as I almost wouldn't hand it to a buddy and be like, "Here, run this," because it's kind of garbage, and it's got so much spurious transmissions. You plug that on a tiny SA Ultra, it's just spike, 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 spike. I'm like,
Well, the good
good
things
old
about
Chinese radio.
the good things about Baofengs is they're cheap. The
Yeah,
crappy things about Baofengs is that they're cheap.
yeah, yeah. They're getting better. They're getting better by the day. And that's the scary thing. They come out with a better one, or honestly, they've cloned the Anytones and everything else, and they're getting substantially better, and it's incrementally more expensive, not substantially, which I appreciate. Not just Baofeng, but a lot of these companies are kind of honing in like, the ham radio groups want better radios, but they don't want to spend ICOM prices, and I don't. I love ICOM new radios, but I'm not willing to spend any more $500-600 on a handheld that doesn't do much more than the quote unquote cheap Chinese knockoff, and it's barely better, if that
Uh,
makes sense. It
Well,
had better quality, they
well,
built better,
it
but
is. It's substantially better, but and here's the huge but: those radios are made for hams. The ICOM and Yaesu, I think, have a separate division to make radios for military
oh yeah, they do.
or first responders, and those are very different radios because though the radios for hams are kind of deluxe and they're boomer
They do
money
special
and
features. They run their own special digital
right.
fusion
They
and all
have
that
all
stuff.
the bells and whistles
Yeah.
because they're going to be used and taken care of in a way that these aren't going to get wet. They're not going to be dropped very often. They're different
They
radios.
may not make it out of the house.
They might not make it out of the house. They might make it to field day, but even so are
Yeah.
taken care of. Or they might be used for Poda and Soda, but they'll have the $300. They're in $300 Tom bin bags and all that stuff, which is fine. That's great because that allows the companies to innovate and try stuff out
Oh,
because the boomers are paying for it. But when you're out in the field a lot and you're trying stuff out, you're throwing antennas up and you're breaking radios out, and the conditions might not be great. And you don't want to drop your $500 radio in the lake. You'd rather drop your $30 radio in the lake.
which I just dropped one of the toroids on the
Whoops!
ground.
Did it break?
No,
Oh, good.
no. Historian bought some real thick ones, and he actually got me some specialized ones because I do QRP just religiously at this point. I have a really nice HF setup that is at Rabbit's house that I
Nice.
don't use with an amp that I haven't never really put to the power test. But yeah, he got me some small ones, and I really appreciate it. He's like, "Oh yeah," because the antenna he builds is still portable. It is definitely not something that is impossible to carry. It's not super heavy. It is bomb proof. That antenna is bomb proof. But once you get done with the class, you can start modifying and making things lighter. And I am an ounces to pounds, guys. I am not going up on a mountain with 80,000 pounds of gear anymore. I am too old for that snot. And chances are, if I'm going up on a mountain, I want the lightest gear possible and the most water I can bring.
Right. Right. That,
But
yes. Again, that's what, to my earlier point. These are different radios for different uses, and you have different use cases. So you don't want to take your $500 up the mountain if you're going to treat it roughly, because you don't want, you're then not going to take full advantage of the radio because you're afraid to, because you don't want to ruin your $500 radio.
well, think about the chameleon antennas out there.
I
The cost
don't,
of a chameleon antenna.
I don't want to.
The cost of chameleon antennas are ridiculous. A lot of them are compromises, which isn't bad for like a lot of people's needs.
The chameleon, again, has a different use case.
Yep.
Is trying to make something that's super rugged, and you can't
Yep.
argue that they're
No,
cheaply
they're
made.
pretty tough.
They're
Yeah.
very well made. They high quality gear, but they're super broadband. So they have to make they make some
Compromises.
they
in their
make some
stuff. Yep.
which makes the antenna not as efficient as it could be, but super tough, and
A-
you pay for it.
And the weights up there on that, and it's usually a parts together thing. So when you get out there, it's kind
Yes.
of like the super antennas, everything else. You bring a bag out with all the stuff, you put the thing up, and then you have to tear it down, which I do not like. And I've watched so many prepper guys. This is part of the reason why I got off the prepper YouTube radio
Yes.
guys. There's nothing wrong with them. They're not bad people, and they are use case people. They are permissive environment disaster relief, and that's what they talk about on YouTube because it's safe and it makes money. No shade on them at all for that.
Nope. No.
I am concerned about non-permissive environments. I'm concerned about how many components I have to carry with me. And that's the nice thing with the link dipole that Historian does. It's all together. You can do it in the dark. It isn't fun, but you can set that up. And when you get done transmitting, you can rip that thing down, ball it up, throw it in a bag, and get the hell out of there. And then you can straighten everything up and pre-prep for your next operation
Yes.
or
Exactly.
disaster or whatever else. It doesn't matter if
Exactly.
it's totally bad, world's ending, apocalypse, or if it's just, man, it's bad weather out here. I'm going to throw this up, spend as little amount of time as I can because the hurricane has destroyed everything. I'm okay. We need assistance here. There's 30 souls, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to drop this antenna if you have nothing to tell me. I'm going to go back to the small shelter I have.
Correct. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, the antennas that Chameleon makes are very high quality, but
Yep.
they're
They cost as much as the radios do now, though.
they do, and I don't want to throw shade on them, but they're not
I will.
as innovative as they could be.
Yeah.
Like their 70 centimeter Yagi doesn't look like it's a very pleasant antenna to use.
I literally haven't looked at them in years. When I got into radios, I wasn't super wealthy. I'm not now either, but I do have a little more slush fund to buy stupid stuff. And going through my experiences, seeing the stuff, and going to classes, learning how to build them.
Yes.
I'm just like, why am I wasting my time on this? And you look at these antennas. Once you start learning I've brought this up with the story and everything else when I do these podcasts. The antenna is your main component that you need to be concerned about and understand more than probably your radio yourself. You can set up your radio in a piss poor manner and still get out, but if you have a piss poor antenna, you ain't talking to anybody.
Yeah, talking to anyone. And Chameleon fills that very important niche of people just getting into radio that have money and want the best antenna. And if you look up, the best emergency antenna, if you look that up, all the YouTubers are saying get the Chameleon, whatever the flavor of the
great
day
sales.
is.
I'm sure they were paid handsomely for this.
And that's what you get. I mean, they're bomb-proof antennas, but their efficiency isn't that great because that's not their main concern.
No.
Their main concern is to make army green antennas
Are durable.
and look tough. And they are tough. They're high quality antennas. They're just that's their main point. It's not efficiency, it's not ease of use. It is army green and bomb-proof.
Super cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am a rattle can commando. I will rattle can my weapons. I will rattle can my gear. And the black antenna that you get done making in historians class, I will rattle can as well. I do not care. And that's something I think a lot of people, and this is kind of the Gucci prepper syndrome that comes out too, is a lot of preppers want things that are a pretty design, a pretty camouflage. I want my Rhodesian whatever color scheme, and I never want to chip scratch while I use it, which you
Don't
ain't gonna
don't
get.
don't throw shade on Joe.
Oh no, his choice of patterns impeccable, and I know that man has scratched his stuff up and cares not. He is a user, not a collector per se. So yeah, and a lot of the guys out there are that way. Is there anything else? I mean, we talked about everything in that class from what software to find out about your antenna. I can't remember the name of the software, and I always forget it. The EZ2A or
Oh yeah,
whatever.
yeah. That's it. EasyNet or something like that.
Yes,
Yeah, that's an antenna modeling program. So
it's
you can,
free.
yeah, it's
Go get it
free,
now.
or there is a version that's free. There's also
Yeah,
pay versions, but there is a
yeah.
version that's free that's still very effective, and you can model antennas if you want to design antennas. That's a great way to just try out a design before you're cutting wire and soldering wire and crimping anything.
One of the things I found out of this class, which is so in the weeds, so deep in the weeds that I never thought about. Now, my antenna building is put this thing together, get my nano NVA out, test it, and I always cut a little long because I know I'm going to have to cut less, even though I measure it 3 times, and I trim down to just get whatever is like just
Yeah.
spot on. Now, because we have so many people in the class, the cost of the wire he uses is expensive, the cost of the stuff is expensive, and he's trying not to kill his budget, even though he gives you scrap wire to run on, scrap wire to solder. So you learn how to solder, learn how to cut the sheath off without
Hmm.
messing up the wire, which most people can't do worth a snot. Also, X-Acto knives are the way, not X-Acto, the box cutter knives. Perfect way to do that. Once you learn to do it with one of those
Yep.
things, you'll get it every time. You may have a sharp knife, but those things work so much better. It is now my go-to in my kit. With all that stuff going on, he bought different antenna, same wire, but it was different. It was built different, and the manufacturer had changed how much polymer coating it was, which actually changed the SWR on his antennas from one spool of wire to the next.
Yeah. Well, the velocity factor, change the velocity factor, which
There,
is,
that's in
yeah.
your net. I am the user. I am not the skilled technician that you are with antennas.
Right. He bought antennas from two different lots, meaning that two different production runs. And one production run had the insulator coating on the outside slightly thicker than the previous run, which, even though it's plastic and you think that it wouldn't affect SWR, it wouldn't affect velocity factor, wouldn't affect how fast electricity goes through the copper, right? Well, no, you're wrong. Everything affects everything when you're dealing with antennas.
Yep. And that's why he chose what he did. That's why
Yeah.
you choose what you do with your antennas. And that's why this is more important than people realize. And also why experimentation is important. Now, this is going back to historian. He has figured this crap out. He has spent the time, he has spent the resources before this class to figure out what antenna should I use, how should I use it, what are the historical factors of people telling me what to do, what are the experts saying. He's read book after book after book. All this information goes down and boils into what you build, how you build it, and how you install it in the air. And we've talked about that before. You kind of alluded to that. Where on the planet we should put this to make the transmission, how far we go, and you experience it. And I think it's something that's so much knowledge. That's years and years and years and years of information. That's hours and hours and hours in books that you can pay a guy $500 right now. And it sounds like a lot of money, but that's cheaper than a chameleon antenna.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
sorry,
cheaper.
I will shit on them a little
No,
bit.
it is cheaper than a chameleon antenna. I mean, $500 for this knowledge is such an incredible deal.
Yeah.
My wife and I are into bluegrass, so we just went to a camp, and we paid a lot more than that
Yep.
for instruction on how to play our instruments. And And so this camp is just ridiculously inexpensive compared to the amount of knowledge you get.
Yeah, we had people fly in for this
Yeah.
class from, I think, Missouri, and part of that they had a Missouri class out there at one time too, but he couldn't make that HF class, and he's like, "I'm coming to the G camp." So, like, people will spend money to go to these classes. They're phenomenal stuff. I can't express how much I enjoy it, and I wanted somebody else who wasn't a regular on here or historian explaining just the value of this class overall. So,
So what's next for me? And I have my antennas right now, but I'm always improving, always trying to get better designs. And that roll up Yagi, I'm going to make another version of that now that I
do
have
it.
access to a big 3D printer. And so there's going to be a 70 centimeter roll up Yagi. There's going to be some other jungle type antennas for different bands. I will probably make one for 915, even though people on the prepper side, on the real prepper side, I should say, really crap on it.
It's fine. I think there is value, and people are going to buy it, and I want you to make money. This is a reason why I don't crap on people selling community antennas. If somebody comes and asks me, I'll be like, "Bro, just build your own, or I'll help you build your own because it's not worth it." If you have oodles of money and you want to go play with one, by all means, or if you want one that looks pretty forever, by means. And if you want to play with, this is probably the only time I'm going to say this. If you want to test out Mistastic and you have a few extra dollars to buy the nodes, I think you should, because you will learn about radio wave propagation and signal strength and everything else with these systems, but do not use it in a non-permissive or even in a remotely potentially hostile environment. Do not
Well,
take it to Ukraine because that's how a lot of them got killed too.
also, well, to be fair, 915 is a valid ham band as well.
Yes.
There
Yes.
are 915 radios. I'll just
Yep.
leave it at that.
Yep. So
I know that's used for video a lot too.
no, it's great. I mean, we used to fly before drones existed. Ham radio operators were running drones with live, what's a scan TV.
Yep.
So it existed. It's been around for a while, and there's other uses for it too. So
Yeah. So look for a 915 antenna. Look for a roll up Yagi, probably initially for 70 centimeters slash GMRS.
I will be getting the roll up
Look
Yagis.
for a crazy, possibly 6 meter one piece jungle antenna
Okay,
that I have a crazy idea for.
I want to see this one.
Oh, it is it's going to be one piece and it's going to fold down to be hopefully just a foot
Oh wow!
long when it's all folded up. But we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Like I
See if
said,
you can make it happen.
if I can make it happen, I
It's
have
the
the idea.
goals.
I have the idea. I just need time.
Yeah, you're gonna have time right now with 25% off.
Yeah, like I said, Nightism is getting the best
You
of me.
made your own grave, sir.
I did. The orders are already piling up.
Yeah, one of them's mine. So you don't have to rush mine. Mine can come out whenever you get bored.
No,
So
no, I try to get out all my orders as quickly as possible because I figure once you buy an antenna from me, it's not my antenna anymore, it's yours, and I want to get to your stuff as quickly as possible back to
I
you.
appreciate that too. So it's
Well,
something that a
yours I'll sit on
scout
for a
does as
while.
well. Yeah, just sit on it.
Yeah, yours I'll
Sit
sit
on
on
it,
for a while,
bend
but
it up.
everyone else's, I try to get out as fast as possible. I mean, sometimes I take a few days because I'm either reordering supplies or
You have a life.
I have a life and I have to go somewhere.
Yeah.
But in those cases, I try to turn off my store from going someplace for more than a few days. But sometimes stuff happens. But I still try to get your stuff as quickly as possible next day, if possible. I've even gotten out some same day orders just because they ordered at the right time of
Wow.
day. But I don't promise that. But like I said, once you buy from me, it's not my antenna anymore. It's yours, and I try to get it to you as quickly as possible.
Well, I always appreciate the cottage industry guys, the small dudes who are doing it as a side hobby or working their way up, and I appreciate your innovation on your antenna. Definitely go check out his photos. I think Etsy has some of the better photos that really show the flexibility of your antenna
Yeah, I got to
and
update
how well
those.
they're built. Yeah, you need to do it on your website, but
Yeah,
they're
those are the previous versions of the antenna with the fat legs.
okay.
I have the much thinner struts that are using stiffer material.
So www.thelaserham.com. I also have thelaserham.etsy.com. And if you want to email them, info@thelaserham.com. Great dude. It was great hanging out with you. It was great seeing what you were designing and building in person. And I'm glad you go to Hamfest and actually show your stuff off, because it's something I think this community probably wouldn't pick up if they didn't see it in their hands sometimes and or hear about it. And I think a lot of ham guys at the ham fests are preppers who are starting to get
Yes.
out and seeing you with the green and gray. They'll be like, oh,
Yes, at Hamfest, you see a ham walk up to it and kind of sneer at it initially, and
yep,
then they get that puzzled look on their face as it's going through their head, and then you see their eyes open as they get the concept, and they're
yep.
like, "I want that."
Yeah, like, oh, I could have built this myself. This snobby nose.
Well, there's some of those people, of course, but then there's the
Yeah,
people that get it. They're like,
yeah.
"Holy, holy crap!
This is easier.
Yeah,
It's not going to cost me buying
yeah,
a 3D
exactly.
printer, doing the engineering,
Yeah,
setting up the CAD files and everything else. And honestly, the price point's not anything excruciatingly bad either. So
not for the components I'm using because I know how much I'm paying for all that stuff."
yeah, yeah. So, hey, you got anything else you want to tell everybody?
Just thanks for having me on, G. This was great. I really enjoy your podcast. I've been listening to it for a while.
Appreciate it. And if
Everyone should be
anybody,
listening to it.
I don't know, keep the commies off. I always like to shun the commies away. But yeah, I appreciate that whole bunch. And hopefully, we're gonna have another podcast coming up about water. Rabbit went through a whole time without water on his job and in the town because the water shut off, and it will be a non-combat, non what if the world's ending kind of common Joe's story about that. And I think you brought a lot of that too. I focus on the military because I'm focusing on drone warfare and stuff like that. The reality is prepping isn't just shoots and battles and guns and all the other stuff. It's hey, I need help.
Yeah. It's
So
mostly avoiding all that stuff.
yeah, let's not have this problem. Let's not be starving. Let's have water. Let's stay clean.
And let's stay
And then
quiet and let's stay not found.
yep. So for all you guys out there listening, keep your shovel sharp and don't be a loot drop. Have a good night.